For my beautiful media presentation, I'm going to be talking about the rivalry between Ohio State and Michigan, and kind of why, at least I think it's one of the greatest rivalries in all of sports history. I'm predominantly going to be talking about football. However, the rivalry does run pretty deep in other sports, including wrestling, hockey, baseball, etc. So, in the beginning, Ohio State and Michigan had their very first matchup all the way back in 1897. Obviously, a really, really long time ago. But the rivalry didn't actually start until 1913. However, I thought it would be pretty important to mention when these two teams met for the first time and why, or this rivalry between Ohio State and Michigan historically is recognized as one of the greatest rivalries in all of sports history, or at least in Michigan, or not in Michigan, in the United States. Uh, so, why is this rivalry so great, and why is it considered one of the greatest? So, like I said, this rivalry dates back over 100 years, and it's something fans look forward to every single year. Me personally, I am a huge Ohio State fan. Grew up on Ohio State football. Both my parents went to Ohio State, so obviously I despise Michigan. Um, and looking forward to every year I look forward to watching these two teams compete just because it's always so intense and the culture this rivalry has like its own culture, which is really cool, and I think that's something that contributes to its name as one of the greatest rivalries in college football. And the passion the two states have for the rivalry is unmatched. If you were to compare it to something, I'd consider it to the Iron Bowl between Alabama and Auburn. That's a really big rivalry in college football. I don't think it's quite as big as the rivalry between Ohio State and Michigan, though. Geographically, Ohio and Michigan are right next to one another, and that creates a conflict when recruiting. Uh, both of these schools are really big schools for football. They're both powerhouse schools. Recently, Ohio State's been a better team, probably over like the last 20 years. They've been the better team, so that looks really good for recruiting. I'd say Ohio State's probably been like in the top 15 every single season, besides one season in the last 15 years, and that shows consistency. And that's something a player looks for when they're choosing their school to go to play football. Uh, Michigan also has a really good football program. However, Ohio State is have proven themselves more dominant over the last 20 years. Um, Another thing that makes this rivalry so great is how the players play when they meet each other each year. Uh, the games are so intense; they're always pretty close. But the players play with like all their heart, no matter if Ohio State's ranked one and Michigan's not ranked. These two teams come to compete each year when they play each other, and it always ends up being a pretty good game. Typically, since this is a big rivalry, these players don't exactly click well with one another, so the games get really, really heated, and typically there's a few players who end up getting ejected. Uh, so, who's leading the series? Well, right now Michigan is leading the series, 58 wins to Ohio State's 51 wins, 61 ties. Uh, Michigan predominantly won most of the games in the early 90s. Uh, Not in the early 90s, the early 1900s. However, Ohio State has been dominating most recently. So, in the last 20 years, Ohio State's 17-3 against Michigan, which, like I said earlier, shows consistency, and that's something kids look for when they're choosing their school to go to. So, on the right, you can see the results of this past decade, and Ohio State has only lost one game out of those 10 years, and the game was actually really close. That's it.